How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you to part 2 of our Season 5 2020 season recap of our Pitt Panthers football dynasty. And this is going to be the team-centric focused recap. So we're going to go through how the season went for your Pitt Panthers, player stats, things of that nature, as well as take a look at some of the career stats of the players in the dynasty so far. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at how the season went for your Pitt Panthers. And we will start with the team schedule for your Pitt Panthers here in this 2020 football season. Of course, we did not play in week 0 or week 1, as you want to call it, in the game. We then took on UConn in our season opener. It was a 20-10 victory. Not the most convincing of wins for us at home against a newly independent UConn team, because David Coleman had a huge day for UConn. Absolutely incredible performance for him. Take a look at that. 242 yards on 30 carries. He ended up, I think, 7th in the Doak Walker Award, which is the best running back in the country. He had an incredible game. Sean Wolfgang, I think, had 4 sacks in the season opener for us. Kenny, you can see, had an okay game. Sibley led the way in rushing, though CJ London had 4 carries for 54 yards before I think an injury took him out in this game. Otherwise, he could have had a very big yardage total. Jay Keys, strong start to his season. Defensively, like I mentioned, Wolfgang, no, he had 2 sacks, as did Scott Whaley, the freshman, who ended up having a big year for us, and Darren Toth. We then went on and beat Marshall 24-7, an away game for us against ended up being a pretty solid Marshall team. They finished the year 8-5. Again, another unspectacular game, but Jay Keys did what we needed from him. 2 touchdowns in the second quarter to help us pick up a big lead that we were able to ride out and end up with a victory. Kenny, again, decent yardage, but not great yards per attempt. Sibley led the way running in this game, and CJ London actually missed this one due to injury, so we relied on Sibley, and he had a big game, as did Jay Keys. Maryland was our next game as we returned home against the Terrapins. They put up a very good fight considering how their season went out. 3-9, but they played us very, very tough, including keeping things close in the fourth quarter as we went back and forth, and they even had a 14-0 lead at the end of the first quarter where we looked like we might be in trouble, but we ended up big rushing day, decent passing day for Kenny, did have a couple of interceptions, but played well. One of the worst days for the defense, to be perfectly honest, but Kenny, you can see 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Jay Keys even threw a touchdown. I think that was the one that went to Sam Smoot on a nice little Wildcat action play. So a really nice job there. CJ London emerged, had a nice game rushing the football. Sibley was solid as well. KJ Welsh had a 45-yard on a jet sweep. So we had a fantastic day overall. Keys had a receiving touchdown, like I mentioned. Smoot had one. Very solid game. Defensively, Wolfgang with a couple of sacks in this one. 2 of his 16 on the year. Toth had 1 of his 18. And we got an int from Damian Vector, who was our team-leading interception leader, I guess you want to say, for the year. Then we had an off week and we had our first ACC game of the season. We took on NC State, team that we beat in the ACC championship game the year prior. They were missing, though, their starting quarterback, and it really showed. We were able to dominate them, took a big lead into the half, and just kind of outlasted them the rest of the way. Pickett threw 3 touchdown passes. Keith Onyango, the redshirt freshman, even getting on the action, catching one. Great game for Pickett, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns on 32 attempts. Really solid performance for him. Sibley and London both complement each other very well. One of their best games combined in this one. And Jay Keys, of course, another big day for him. Defensively, you can see some of the top leaders. Artis Scott with an interception. Not as many sacks. Toth had a couple in a good, solid performance. We then beat Wake 38-20. Fairly easy win over a Wake team that wasn't very good, although we did need 10 points in the fourth quarter to just make it comfortable. It was 28-20 at the end of the third quarter. Jay Keys and Todd Sibley each scoring touchdowns to help us, put it out of reach on that one. Although it says was there a field goal in there? It says 2 touchdowns in the fourth, but then it says 10 points up on the scoring summary. So I don't know what we're looking at here. I can see it is 38-20, but I think the scoring summary is a little blurred up because of this. We actually need 14 points in the fourth quarter. So either way, we dragged out a victory, made it go from 24-20. To 38-20, and we got a victory. Pick 6 thrown by Kenny, so a little bit tough there. 2 more interceptions on the day for him, though he did pass for 311 yards. So good quarterback rating, but we would like to take the interceptions back. Of course, Sibley and London, another 1-2 punch between them where they kind of split the work. Jay Keys had a big day. Paul Lease, 93-yard touchdown, one of the longest in the country this season, 164-yard receiving day. He's been known for those big games, I'll tell you. Paul Lease can get some big yardage games. While Keys will end up with the receptions and overall yards and touchdowns, Paul Lease can break out for a big receiving day here and there. He's been very, very good in that regard. Ryan Jacobs, the freshman defensive tackle, with 2 sacks in this one. Virginia Tech game, we had to outlast them, 26-20, tight game against an always solid opponent. We 2 field goals were able to take us from a tie game, 20-20, to end up with the victory after starting out so brightly. 2 touchdowns in the very early going. KJ Welsh with a big long touchdown for the Panthers. Pickett struggled in this one, under 50% completion percentage and 2 picks, but did enough to help us get the victory. The rushing game was terrible in this game. Pickett led the way with 32 yards. That tells you we had a really tough rushing day. KJ Welsh with a nice performance receiving. The offensive line had some nice pancake stats, though. Chase Pine with 9 tackles to lead the way for us, and you can see some sacks in different plays from some of the other guys. Ronnie Baker, the defensive end, the junior, with a couple of sacks in this one. 41-20, easy win over Virginia this time. A huge second quarter, putting things out of reach for us there. Jay Keys, Paul Lease, and Jay Keys each scoring touchdowns in this one. Pickett also had a rushing touchdown. Threw for 266 on the day, 3 touchdowns. Just 1 interception. We did give up a ton of passing yards in this one. That's because Virginia was playing from behind most of the game. London struggled in this one. Sibley played well, but you'll see as we get towards the end of the season, things completely reverse direction. Jay Keys actually running for 52 yards in this one and a touchdown. Had 7 catches and 2 touchdowns as well. Huge day for Jay in this one. And you can see some of the defensive leaders as well. Against Notre Dame, 24-21, we end up dropping this one. We had the lead as well over the Fighting Irish, which makes it even more heartbreaking to fall from behind. And then some of the play calling late on was tough because we had the 2-point conversion that we missed on, and then we missed another 2-point conversion, which would have put us down just a single score. We'd been down a point, which means Notre Dame, who ended up being able to run the clock out on us, we might have tried to let them score a touchdown, so then we'd be down 8 and we could get the football back. As it was, we weren't able to create the comeback, and Notre Dame's backup quarterback, Smith, came in for a period of time and torched us. Then Ian Book came back in, and he torched us. So it was a tough day overall against Notre Dame. They just really grinded it out on us, to be honest. They were 12 of 16 on third down conversions. That was the big story of the game. Pickett, though, good solid performance in the loss. 340 yards passing and a touchdown. The rushing attack, again, completely non-existent. Todd Sibley, CJ London, even Pickett couldn't get anything going in this one. Receiving game, though, Jay Keys didn't have a touchdown, but 195 yards on 9 receptions in the loss. Fantastic performance from him. And the defense just struggled in this one. Chase Pine did have an interception. I don't even know if we had a sack in this game. We had 1 from Jacobs, and that was it. You can see for Notre Dame, the big story, both of their quarterbacks had gigantic performances, and Canary had a nice game for them running the football. We bounced back with a victory over Georgia Tech at home, 31-24 over Lane Kiffin's squad. And it was one of those games where we needed to come from behind. 21 straight points. We thought we were going to lose 2 straight as Georgia Tech was dominating us up 17-10 late in the third quarter. But Jay Keys got a big touchdown reception from Pickett, and then we used 2 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter to overtake the Yellow Jackets and take the lead. Or excuse me, I should say we were down 24-10 late in the third quarter, and then used 21 unanswered points to come away with the victory. Rushing attack finally came back to life, 188 yards on the ground, but the turnovers were what nearly killed us in this game. 5 turnovers, that was our most in the season in this particular outing. It was a tough day. Kenny threw 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns as well, but the 3 picks really hurt us. CJ London, though, this was his breakout game where he really took over as our star at running back. 126 yards in this one. Didn't have a touchdown. Jay Keys vultured that, of course, but it was a great game for London. And Keys, 3 more touchdowns in this game. 135 yards receiving on 8 catches, 2 touchdowns there. Incredible effort from him yet again. Couple of sacks for Darren Toth, part of his 18 on the season. Wolfgang with 2 as well. So both of our real stud defensive linemen getting you on the action. The next one with Duke, we don't have to do a ton of coverage. 40-13, an easy victory for the Panthers, though we did use 17 fourth quarter points, 24 second half points overall to pull away from the Blue Devils. They were within 3 at halftime, and then we really put things out of reach. Pickett with a nice game, 3 touchdowns, 242 yards on 43 attempts, though he was under 50% completion percentage, which was tough. London again over 100 yards and a touchdown. Jay Keys 7 catches and a touchdown. Pretty complete effort from the Panthers here, and you can see a few guys getting in onto the action defensively as well. Then we beat North Carolina 31-28 over the Tar Heels. It was a hard-fought battle, a fourth quarter touchdown, and 14 unanswered points in the second half allowed us to come from behind again and beat North Carolina. And this is what led to us thinking something about this season special. We continue to come from behind. Obviously, we let the Notre Dame game slip away, but we come from behind yet again against North Carolina. Great offensive performance for us. They had a really solid game. Chaz Surratt was very good for them, but Pickett again, 300 yards and a touchdown. Really solid game. London with 2 touchdowns, 112 yards on just 17 carries. Sibley struggled a bit, but did contribute. Jay Keys again, 104 yards, 8 catches and a touchdown. That's why he won the Biletnikoff Award this year. He was so good. Whaley with an interception and a sack in this game. I think he won Defensive Player of the Week. It was a great performance. We then beat Miami to wrap up our ACC Coastal Division Championship and finish off our regular season. 34-24 in this one, though they did score garbage time points. It was 34-10 at one point, and then we just kind of let them back in it. Jay Keys, 2 more touchdowns in this one. Solid performance, nothing spectacular. We gave up a bunch of passing yards late in the game. Pickett, not great for his rating, but he did throw 3 touchdown passes. Sibley led us in rushing yards this game. It'd be the last time he would do so on the season as London struggled. Keys with 2 more touchdowns receiving. Lease had a nice game. Defensively, you can see a couple of sacks. Chase Pine leading the tacklers yet again. We then had to go to Conference Championship Week where we took on Clemson 24-17, 14 fourth quarter points to beat the Tigers. Another come-from-behind victory. I mean, what more can you ask for? It was Jay Keys again with a touchdown catch and a touchdown run. I think the touchdown catch, if I remember correctly, that tied the game was actually on 4th down as well. So incredible day for him to be able to help seal that come from behind win. Pickett, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which was key. He really limited the interceptions down the stretch. London, 100 rushing yards. Keys and Lees combining. Lees and Keys, attorneys at law, or pass catchers at law. 14 catches between them. Really nice performance. Great game overall. You can see Vector getting on the sheet with an interception, which I remember was huge in our own, to seal the game with like 3 minutes left. He had an interception as Clemson tried to tie the game. Then, I mean, the biggest game of the season, the Rose Bowl, the semifinal game against Clemson, or not against Clemson, excuse me, after beating Clemson against West Virginia, and we blew them out. 28 points in the 3rd and 4th quarters. 48-17 was the final. Incredible day. 494 yards of offense. The defense was great. We did have a couple of turnovers, but 11 of 14 on 3rd down. Kenny Pickett, what a day he had. 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jay Keys threw a touchdown. Of course, the halfback pass, you'll remember, to Antonio Greer late in the game. CJ London, another solid day. Sibley complimented him with 48 yards. They combined very well. Receiving, Jay Keys again, 6 for 111 and a touchdown. Lease had a touchdown. Greer had a touchdown. KJ Welch had a touchdown. Lots of guys getting into the action, which was fantastic. On the defensive side of the football, Sean Wolfgang, 4 sacks. This allowed him to set the NCAA record as well as tie the Pitt career record. Or excuse me, he was 1 behind the Pitt career record in sacks, unofficially, of course, because it was before sacks were officially recorded by the NCAA. But great game for him. Incredible victory for the Panthers that led to us going to the national championship, where we know we lost to Alabama. We don't want to rehash this game too much because we just talked about it in the last episode. But Kenny Pickett, what a game for him. If we don't acknowledge the injury and just take into account the snaps he played, he was fantastic. AC Reese did his best. We'll see what more is to come for AC in the future. CJ London with another big game rushing the football. Todd Sibley, bad taste in his mouth after that performance. 2 carries, -5 yards, including a fumble lost that led to an Alabama touchdown. Jay Keys and Paul Lease again with big games receiving. Defensively, Wolfgang had a sack. Darren Toth had 3 sacks. Jason Jordan had a huge game for us. It was a tough one, no doubt about it, to lose this one. Jay Bump with the missed field goal, of course, to send us home without the national championship, unfortunately. But it was a great season. nonetheless. So let's take a look at the players that performed so well for us this season. And so we'll look at our team stats here. You can see Kenny Pickett almost hit the 4,000-yard plateau, 32 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Much better than the previous year when he was 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. The year before that was 18 and 11. So he's gotten better every year, even though his quarterback ratings kind of fizzled around. His completion percentage went down this year, which is what hurt him a lot. But he had more yards per game, more touchdowns, same amount of interceptions. So a great season for Kenny Pickett. He was sacked a lot, though, 38 sacks. Look at 2015, only sacked 24 times. He didn't pass as much then, but still, we want to get back to those numbers and help protect our quarterback a little bit better. AC Reese, 17 attempts, 13 of them, I believe, came in the national title game. I mean, his rating's good. He had good yards per attempt, but the interception, of course, in the national championship game hurt us. Hopefully, he can be a bit more consistent next season. And Jay Keys, 4 for 4, 25 yards, 2 touchdowns. What more could you ask for from your Wildcat quarterback? Rushing, CJ London led the way, 938 yards, which is a good improvement from 624 the year prior. You can see his yards per carry is up. His yards per game's obviously up. Touchdowns stayed the same. Yards after contact was very impressive, almost 300 yards, 5 20-plus yard carries. I was surprised with that, to be honest, because it didn't feel like we had too many big plays, but London was the guy to provide them. Sibley, after that, 695, a drop-off of a bit from 721 last season. His yards per carry did go up. He had more touchdowns. So, he was okay, but the 2 fumbles that he had this year were definitely killers. Keys, 176 yards rushing, which was good. A little bit more than last year. Those yards per carry was down. We used him primarily in the goal line set, right, as the Wildcat quarterback, just using that big frame that he has to get us into the end zone. Kenny, his rushing numbers went down a bit, though he did have 4 touchdowns. Welsh was very good on the jet sweeps. I think we'll get him more involved next year as well. And you can kind of see the rest of the guys' stats the rest of the way. Our longest run of the season was only 45 yards, and it was by a receiver. Our longest run by a running back was 36 yards. Hopefully, Davion Reynolds coming in next year can really improve on that. You can see 20-plus yard runs, though. London did have 5, which was solid. Sibley led the way with 7 broken tackles. Pickett had 5 fumbles. I'm not sure how many of those he lost, but he did lose a couple for sure. Sibley, we know, did. London did. We did have a little bit of fumbling issues throughout the season. Receiving stats, Jay Keys was the stud. 102 receptions, which is a Pitt record. 1428 yards, which is a record in the record book here, but in real life, 1672 by Larry Fitzgerald is the record. 16 touchdowns, just behind Fitzgerald's record. I think he had 22 in 2003, I want to say. Keys was 16, though. Great season, which is why he won the Biletnikoff Award. You can see he wasn't as big of a big play guy, though. Paul Lease led in that respect, 93-yard touchdown. He had a 59-yarder as well in the national championship game. KJ Welsh also was solid on the big plays. Receptions, again, back to that. You can see Keys led the way, but Paul Lease, very good season, 56 receptions after 22 and 41 in the last couple of seasons, so he's vastly improving. You see his yards per reception went up, which was great to see, as did his touchdowns. KJ Welsh, great year as a freshman. Ogden continued to get better, 32 catches this year in his first significant playing time. Greer, basically the same stats as last year. 4 touchdowns, though, which is great to see. He's continuing to improve. He's a very good receiving tight end. London had a good year catching the football. Caleb Cannon, I love using him as like a mini Gronk. He's not getting a ton of yards per reception because he's not a deep threat, obviously, with his speed, but his height allows him to get open. He's been very, very useful for us at different times. One area where we'll definitely want to improve for next year is on the drops. You can see Jay Keys had 16, which a lot of his are just because I'll force them in, and he's so good he'll get a hand on it and then get leveled, or the defender will break it up. But because he touched it, the game gives him a drop. You know what I mean? So he's a little bit hurt by that. KJ Welch was the one guy I can really remember having a lot of open drops, like where nobody touched him and he just dropped the football. So hopefully he can improve on that next year, because he's going to be continue to be a big part of our offense. What's great to see about every single one of these pass catchers, other than our fullback, none of them are seniors, which means they'll all be back next year, which is going to be spectacular. Blocking-wise, we will be losing our best offensive lineman, Cam Porter. 15 pancakes, 4 sacks allowed. The guy's a beast. Look at that, 11-3 the year before. very, very good for us. John Cooper was very good. His second year as a starter, he ends up with 15 pancakes. He's 91 overall as a junior. He's going to be like 96 overall as a senior, which is spectacular. Ryan Henry had a very good year, 10-3 after 7-5 last year. Collins improved, but not by a ton. Hopefully we can see a bit more out of him next year as our right tackle. Caleb Cannon, very good blocker. I think he might become our number 2 tight end instead of Jay Ballmer. And Ballmer can be like our fullback maybe, just because we'll have him for an extra year. Luke Davis, he's a center, but he may be a potential option to replace Cam Porter at left guard. We'll have to see. There's definitely some other guys who I'm intrigued to look at in that regard. Defensively, Avery Heller, I mean, this guy's a ball hawk. We thought Paris Ford was a ball hawk. I think he had 93 or 97 tackles, something of that nature for me. I think 97 was actually the number he had. 97 tackles for us last season. Avery Heller had 115 tackles, which is incredible. He was all over the field. He didn't make as many splash plays as Ford, I didn't think, but a great stat line nonetheless, because he had, 115 tackles, couple of sacks, couple of picks, 1 deflection, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. So, I mean, he was around the ball making a lot of plays, which is very impressive. Our other safety, Lachlan, was good. We didn't get as many tackles from our linebackers as I expected. Our safeties were kind of in the box a bit more and making those plays, probably because I left them in like a robber zone, typically 1 low, 1 high, and the linebackers were often either blitzing or in man coverage. So the safeties end up having to clean up a lot of stuff, which is why they end up with so many tackles. But Jason Jordan, 3rd in tackles. He was our team leader. I named him captain of our defense, and he played like an incredible season. 18 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Really big year for him. Of course, our tackles for loss leaders were Toth and Wolfgang because of all the sacks they had. Darren Toth, 18 sacks, led the country. Wolfgang was 2nd in the nation with 16. Barry Jenkins had 6 sacks, as did Ronnie Baker. But Barry Jenkins, an outside linebacker, probably our most underrated defender. I didn't talk about him so much, even though he's 90 overall. He was the 2nd highest rated player on our defense behind Kaiser Artis-Scott. He had 6 sacks, 46 tackles, 15 for loss, a pick, forced 4 fumbles, which was incredible. So he was all over the place making big plays for us. Fantastic player. And I'm really excited to continue. It's disappointing to lose him, but it was exciting to see how he played this year. So very exciting year for the Panthers. We had, I think, 67 sacks or something like that, which led the country. Damian Vector, the true freshman, 4 interceptions on the year, led the way, but Scott Whaley's the guy to pay attention to. He's in the nickel this year. He'll probably be as an outside corner next season. 49 tackles, 9 for a loss, 4 sacks, 3 picks, 3 deflections, and recovered a fumble. What a year for this guy. Unbelievable in terms of his play. Really good year. Kaiser Artis-Scott, only 2 picks as a senior, which I thought was a bit disappointing. That's his season average, but he did lead us in deflections with 7. So I think it was a matter of, number one, he was so good in overall compared to all of our other corners that they just didn't want to throw near him. And then when they did, he just deflected the ball away. He was a very good player in terms of that. Not great catching, but it is what it is. We forced a good number of fumbles. Jenkins led the way with 4 there, and Wolfgang led us in recoveries with 3. We did not have any defensive touchdowns this year, though, which is surprising because every year we usually end up with like 3 or 4. We even had 3 in one game, I remember, against Virginia a few seasons back. Nothing doing this year, but it is what it is. Hopefully next year we can create some splash plays with the defense and take them all the way back to the house. Jay Bump, I don't want to take anything away from him. He won the Groza Award, best kicker in the country, only missed 2 field goals. It just happened that one of them was in the national championship game, unfortunately. Made a 55-yarder, but look at him. He was very, very good. Inside of 30 was automatic. He only missed 1 inside of 40 yards, and that was in the national championship game. He missed only 1 from 40 inside 49 yards from 40 to 49, 11 of 12, which is very good from that distance, and he was perfect from beyond 50 yards. So incredible season for him. It's a shame for the way things will go out for him. A 4-year kicker for us, 85 made field goals on 96 attempts, 90% accuracy, very, very good player, made the most field goals in the country this year. So we're going to miss him in spite of what happened in the national championship game. Punting, Eric Fox, I mean, he was good. We're not going to say too much about the punter. Where he really improved this year was he didn't have as many punts inside the 20, but he also had less touchbacks. So he improved there. Look at his net, 37 versus the 33 and the 31 he had in the years prior. So very, very good year for Eric Fox punting the football. I think he finished third in the Ray Guy Award for best punter in the country. Our return game improved as well. Artis Scott was good this year returning the football. Maurice French, remember, was our returner last year and was not very good. But Artis Scott, 33-yard average, which is good. He didn't have a ton of returns, but he did well with them. Punt returning, Whaley was solid. Onyango was good. Tyquan Sutton was our original punt returner before he got injured and was out for the entire season with the vertebrae injury. He was not good on the punt returns. Whaley came in and did pretty well. And so he may retain that position next year, or we got some exciting freshmen that may have an opportunity to get the ball in their hands in that fashion. So overall, great look at the team's season statistics. Let's take a look now at the career statistics as some players are set to leave us here this offseason. All right, so we take a look. Kenny Pickett did hit 10,000 yards in his career, an incredible four-year career for us. Remember, his only game he played in as a freshman was our bowl game against Texas A&M. We ended up losing, but we were way behind when Pickett came in. He ignited the team, 2 touchdowns. I think he ran for one as well. If I remember, it says 2, but I remember he had one overturned. That's why it says 2, even though he only had 1. But he had 3 touchdowns, completely energized the team, and really was a lightning rod for us. And so he earned himself the starting job the next year, and he never looked back. He improved year over year. Look at his yardage totals. Look at his yards per game. Look at his touchdown to interception ratio. Improved year to year, and he was just an incredible quarterback for us. He was only 4 touchdowns behind Dan Marino's all-time passing TDs record for Pitt. He was like 1,000 yards behind Alex Van Pelt's all-time passing yardage record for Pitt. He's just a winner, a great player, led us to 3 ACC championships in his 3 seasons as a starter. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that national title with him or for him once he went out in this one, but a great career nonetheless. Look at his rushing numbers as well. They dipped year after year once we became more of a passing team, less of a run-heavy team. But he was never in the negatives, which tells you even with all the sacks he took, he could run very, very well. And he was a great player. 17 career rushing touchdowns. We're really going to miss him moving forward. But AC Reese is going to be the guy. Jalen Hills, ignore him. Those are from, because when I transferred Ben DiNucci to UCF a season or 2 ago, his player ID got linked to Jalen Hills. So because of that, Jalen Hills is showing Ben DiNucci's stats from when he was with Pitt. So we can just ignore those. He doesn't actually have that many passing yards and stuff like that for us. So we can ignore that. AC Reese, 240 yards passing in his career. Next year, he's going to get an opportunity to really improve on that, so we'll see how things go. Rushing so far, CJ London now, 14 yards in his career, 13 touchdowns. Sibley with 16. So I'd expect them both to likely hit 2,000 yards in their career next season, unless Davion Reynolds comes in and completely takes over. London, I think, no problem will hit it anyways, because he's probably in line to be our feature back. Sibley's the guy who's at risk of losing playing time as the third fiddle behind Reynolds and London, depending on how things shake out. But we'll see how it goes in the preseason, see who impresses me. Jay Keys, 8 touchdowns in his career rushing. He's been very, very good. And you can see some of the other guys that have gotten some opportunities. Receiving-wise, Keys now up to 178 receptions. The all-time Pitt record, I'm not sure what the game says, but the all-time Pitt record for real is Tyler Boyd, 254 receptions, which means Jay Keys is going to need, 76 receptions to tie 77 to break Tyler Boyd's career reception record in Pitt history. So I think he could do it, but we'll see how the passing game goes. We're going to be breaking in a new starter, so it'll be interesting to see how Keys does in his junior year. Paul Lease, basically averaging 40 catches a year for 3 years. Fantastic player. Really excited about him. KJ Welsh, only 1 season in his career, 46 catches. So I think he's set for a big career in the blue and gold. Blocking-wise, Cam Porter, of course, we're losing. Great player. We'll also be losing Brandon Ford, senior lineman. Otherwise, we're going to retain everybody else, and we'll see how the offensive line shakes out. Should be a good battle for next year. Defensive-wise, I know the tackles here always get screwed up when you get over a certain number. So, like, for example, we'll sort it by solos, because Jason Jordan's tackle number here says 33, but you can see he had way more than 33 tackles in his career. He actually has 159 total tackles in his career, solo tackles in this regard. Unbelievable player. 10 sacks in his career. We're really going to miss him. Barry Jenkins had 109 tackles in his career. I guess it must be when you get over like 140 or something like that, because you see Artis Scott's is messed up as well, or when you go over maybe 125 or 130, because Heller's is still good and he's at 122, so I'm not sure what number it gets screwed up at. But there you go. You can see the big tackle numbers for us with some of the guys we're going to lose. Jordan will lose, of course. Artis Scott will be losing. 4-year player for us. Was a contributor every single year. Fantastic guy. As was Jordan. Jordan played for 4 years. You can see he didn't have as many tackles his first 2 years. He's a reserve outside linebacker. Same with Jenkins. Reserve outside linebacker the first 2 years. Then the last 2 years he was a starter. And this year especially, he finally popped off and had a fantastic end to his career. We'll miss Chase Pine. Our starting middle linebacker will be gone. And then the two big guys we'll be missing, Sean Wolfgang and Darren Toth. 49 sacks for Wolfgang in his career. What an incredible career it has been. 16 sacks, then 14 sacks, then 16 sacks in the last 3 seasons. Absolutely incredible run. Like I said, his 49 career sacks ties Pitt legend Hugh Green for most sacks in Panther history all time. Great player. Kind of a one-trick pony. He had a lot of tackles for loss, of course, but mainly sacks. Didn't force a ton of fumbles. Didn't really do much else. He did recover a bunch, but his primary goal was get after the quarterback, and he did that with authority. Darren Toth, 21 sacks in his career. You can see he was a 3-year backup, incredibly. He was third-string defensive tackle for like 3 straight years because we had Amir Watts and Keyshawn Camp. And then finally Toth gets in as a starter this year and goes wild. 18 sacks, incredible year for him, 21 in his career. Great totals for him. Really excited to see. Ronnie Baker will start at defensive end next year, and we'll have to see what we want to do. Bordeaux was probably going to be our other defensive end, but we may see about moving him around. He's a big body. I think I like the way he played inside. That may be a move that we'll make in the offseason. Our leading career interception guy is Artis Scott, who will be losing. Everybody else will be back for next year in the secondary, so we're excited to see how that goes. Deflections, Artis Scott had 12 in his career. Very solid player, just solid through and through. Nobody on this team has had a career touchdown, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Like I mentioned, kicking stats, Jay Bump, 93% career, or 88% career, was 93% this year. 96 field goal attempts, which is a ton. Never missed an extra point. Only missed 1 inside of 30 yards. Missed 3 from the 30-plus yard range. 5 from 49 to 4. From 40 to 49, and 4 of 6 from 50 plus. He's going to be on an NFL roster somewhere, no doubt about that. Fox will be back next year. Of course, you can see his punting stats. And the return game, we haven't really had much going on, but it is what it is. So there's a look at our team stats. Of course, say farewell to Kenny Pickett for the last time. Incredible player. I'm sure he'll be going to an NFL team, and will make them very, very happy. A true consummate leader and team player. What a guy, and we're going to miss him. So that's our team recap. Oh, I think the last thing I wanted to cover, because I didn't do it in the last episode, were the conference standings. We'll finish it out with that. Our team recap's pretty much done, but we'll show you how every conference shook out just so you can see that, because I forgot to do it in the NCAA season recap, and that'll wrap things up for us. So you can see we had a great year winning the Coastal, of course, and runners-up in the national championship game. Clemson won the Atlantic. A little bit of a regression from the likes of Wake this season. Great year from Louisville. I think they were 5-7 last year. They're 11-2 this year, so great year for them. Regression from Virginia, 9-4 last year, 5-7 this year, so disappointing. Miami really struggled this year with how good their team was, which was pretty incredible. Georgia Tech second in the Coastal, but 5-7. I know Lane Kiffin's on the hot seat, so interesting to see how that'll shake out. As we go around the rest of the country here, in the American, of course, Houston was the top dog there. Navy, Cincy, SMU with a great year. Houston and SMU, as well as Arkansas State of the Sun Belt, currently being courted by the Big 12. We may see them make a move so that the Big 12 can have 12 teams again and be able to have a conference championship game, because that's, of course, the requirement for NCAA football. You can use the editor, but I don't really feel like doing that with the fact that it's not my conference. If they were my conference, I would probably do it, but because it's not my conference, I'd rather just give them 12 teams. So that may be something we'll shake out. Let me know in the comments if you think Houston, SMU, Arkansas State, which of those 3 teams, which 2 of the 3 should join the Big 12 potentially. And to speak of the Big 12, West Virginia, of course, won the conference. Kansas brought up the rear. Oklahoma, underwhelming season for them. Texas was very good this year. TCU had an impressive year. 9-4, though they lost like 3 of their last 4 games. They were 8-1 at one point, I think, and were number 2 or 3 in the country before dropping off. Big 10, we'll do it division by division. Of course, Penn State won the conference, 8-2 or 7-2 in the division, and then they beat Wisconsin in the title game. Ohio State had it wrapped up. I thought they were going to the playoff. They were 9-1, and then they lost in succession to Indiana, then Michigan, and then they lost their bowl game to South Carolina. So they went from 9-1 to 9-4. Michigan won their last 3 games, I think, to go from 4-6 to 7-6, and probably saved Jim Harbaugh's job in doing so. In the Big Ten West, going the wrong way here, Wisconsin was the top dog, of course, 7-2. Northwestern had a great year. They were at one point, I think, 8-1 or 7-1. Kind of dropped off towards the end, but had a very strong year. Rest of the conference, not particularly great. Iowa really struggled this year. Conference USA in the East, Marshall, of course, tied with Middle Tennessee State for the East Championship. Middle Tennessee State won the tiebreaker there, and so they ended up going to the Conference Championship game where they lost to Rice. You can see the rest of Conference USA there as Rice won the conference. Great year for them. UAB, after going to the College Football Playoff last year, not a bad year, 9-4 on the season. Helped out, of course, by the fact they had Kyle Trask at quarterback, transferred from Florida. Army with a great year, 11-2, though they did lose to arch rival Navy, which will put a stain on their season, but they did get a bowl victory and finished with a very high record. Notre Dame 8-5 this year, so disappointing for the Fighting Irish, though they did get a victory over us, which I'm sure they'll be happy about. In the MAC, you can see Miami of Ohio won the conference, had a great year, 11-3 on the season as they won their bowl as well. Very good season there for the Red Hawks. You can see the West as well. Nothing too exciting on that side. Mountain West, New Mexico won the conference. They won their division, and then they beat Fresno State in the conference championship game. Very weak Mountain side, though. Boise really struggled, which is surprising. They won the conference last year. Really had a bad year this year. Fresno, of course, was arguably the best team in the conference, but they lost the conference championship, so I guess they lose out on that. Good seasons for San Jose State and Hawaii. Pac-12, of course, Cal did not win the championship, though they finished as the highest-ranked team in the Pac-12. They lost the conference championship game to UCLA, but the best year we've ever seen Cal have in this particular dynasty. Washington, very good as well. Oregon had a great year, as did Oregon State, their best year by far as a real Cinderella team. You can see with their overall compared to some of the other teams in the conference, it was impressive. They finished 10-3. The South winner was UCLA, and they ended up winning the Pac-12, beating Cal in the conference championship game, forcing Cal out of the playoff and allowing West Virginia to get in. USC did well in conference, but struggled overall. 7-6 year, not great for them. Utah and Colorado barely won a game this year. Utah, I think, won their 12th game, which is the only way they had a victory. In the SEC, of course, Florida and South Carolina tied for the East title, but South Carolina had the tiebreaker, so they lost to Bama in the conference championship game. Mizzou, great Cinderella year for them, going 9-4 with a pretty weak team, especially offensively. They ended up playing very, very well. Georgia struggled this year, 99 rated offense, and they just could not put points up. Terrible year for the Bulldogs. Kirby Smart will be lucky to keep his job. In the West, Bama, of course, the national champions and the SEC champions. Ole Miss and Texas A&M, both with great years. Matt Canada, our former offensive coordinator, is Texas A&M's head coach. Last year's national champions, LSU, finished the year 8-5 in the SEC. And then, of course, the Sun Belt to wrap things up. Arkansas State obliterated the conference. They did lose their bowl game, though, to finish 11-2 on the season. But still had a very good year. And they've won like 11 games pretty much every year in this dynasty, which is why it'd be interesting to see potentially putting them in the Big 12 as opposed to an SMU or a Houston. But we'll see. So let me know in the comments what you think about that. And we'll wrap things up here, of course. Thank you so much for watching. It's our team recap. Our next episode will be finishing the season, moving into the offseason. We'll see the coaching moves that maybe take place, players leaving, and it will probably end the episode with recruiting and seeing what kind of moves we might want to make going into the final recruiting day and what players we're going to try and get with how many open scholarships we have. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.